All right, Shabbosai, good morning. Good morning. Let us begin. We are picking up, actually mentioned, hopefully today we're going to conclude Os Gimel in Tzidkas HaTzaddik. So we're picking up on page Vav. So remember again, the Rav Tzadok had explained to us, interestingly enough, that by Kriya Shema, we recite Shema b'shach b'cha u'v'kumecha, when you go to sleep and when you get up. So although we normally associate this as saying that you say Shema in the morning and in the evening, the HaTzaddik points out that if it was about the morning and the evening, the Torah could have said, say Shema in the morning and the evening. It doesn't say that. Instead it says, when you go to sleep and when you get up. So the HaTzaddik explains, what's the difference between the morning and the evening versus when you go to sleep, when you get up? He says, morning and evening are changes in the world, changes in the day, but not necessarily representing changes in me. As opposed to when I go to sleep and when I get up, those represent changes inside of me. Changes inside of me. And therefore the HaTzaddik is trying to highlight over here, as the Rebbe was telling us, that at different stages in life and in different things that are happening in your life, I have to find the ability to, number one, accept HaKadosh Baruch Hu as my God and accept the responsibility of Torah mitzvot. So yesterday we spoke about when you wake up, going out into the world, working, and how no matter what it is that I'm doing, whether it's actively involved in Torah or actively involved in the pursuit of my career, I must bring the Ribono Shel Olam into this. And now we come to B'shach B'cha, when you go to sleep. So we'll say page Vav, Be'oria Chasidus, left-hand column, the bottom. Ba'layla, Hagam Shu'es Shchiva U'menucha. Now when you go to sleep, well, it's a very profound piece. And when you go to sleep, it's a time of sleeping, right? Right, night. It's a time of sleeping and rest. V'ha'adam eino osa shum pu'ula. Now, when a person goes to sleep, they're not doing anything. They're not doing anything. B'chol zos tzarech gamkin kabbalas ol malchus shamayim. Even then, a person requires kabbalas ol malchus shamayim. A person requires the acceptance of the yoke of heaven, right? Even then, it's very interesting. When you go to sleep, I have to remember again, when we speak about Kabbalas Ol Malchus Shamayim, Shema represents two things. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad represents the acceptance of HaKadosh Baruch Hu as my God, as an authority on me. And then V'haya'im Shamoa represents the acceptance of mitzvos upon myself. So even when I go to sleep, Rav Tzadok says, I have to accept these things upon me. So what does that mean? Even when you go to sleep, know before whom you are sleeping. Right? Isn't that incredible? Normally we think about the idea of know before whom you stand. There's also know before whom you sleep. What an incredible, incredible idea. That obviously when I go through life, I'm standing before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and know before whom you sleep. Even when you go to sleep, I go to sleep before God. I go to sleep before HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Even when I'm not actively doing anything, right? I'm not engaged in physical dynamic activity. I'm sleeping. He says, my intellect is not working when I sleep. One still has to remember that I sleep before God. I will say, what an overwhelming statement, right? And not only do I stand before God, but I sleep before God. So I'll say this is incredible. Look what Rav Tzadok writes. Remembering that you sleep before God, page Zayin, Himelacha Yoser Gidola Mikabalas Olmachu Shamayim Biyom Kasher Sichlo Sha'adam Paul. Literally translated, knowing that you sleep before God is even more difficult than knowing that you stand before God. Why? Because when I'm awake, I have the tool of my intellect. Right? I could remind myself, I could reinforce for myself, I could cogitate, I could think on these things. I could remind myself of these things, I could learn. And therefore I could consistently and constantly reinforce this idea that I live before the Ribono Shel Olam. I could reinforce Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. V'haya'im Shamoa Tishmo Mitzvosai. I could constantly reinforce these things over and over and over. But at the end of the day, when you're asleep and the intellect is not active, so then everything fundamentally changes. He goes on, he says, Kimosha Shamati Be'inyan Zeh Al Pasuk, this is so beautiful. Vayachalom V'hinei Sulam. As the pasuk says by Yaakov Avinu, he dreamt and there was a ladder. So remember again, this is the dream of Yaakov Avinu. Falls asleep, there's a ladder, there are malachim, there are angels going up and down the ladder, and the Ribono Shel Olam himself is perched on the top of the ladder. So listen to how beautiful this is. He says, She'inyan chalom ne'amar b'pam rishona b'Torah legabe Yaakov Avinu. This is absolutely incredible. The first dream of the Torah was ever said by Yaakov Avinu. So it's fascinating, right? The first dream was a dream mentioned by Yaakov Avinu. Mechevan sheme'achalomos nikar ma'alas ha'adam b'mashu shakua be'emes. You could tell a lot about a person based on what they dream about. Tell a lot about a person based on the dreams they have at night. So it's fascinating to see that the first dream ever recorded in the Torah was from Yaakov Avinu. And what did Yaakov Avinu dream about? He dreamt about angels, and he dreamt about God. Actually, he dreamt about three things. He dreamt about a ladder, which the Lubavitcher Rebbe points out so beautifully, that the dreaming about a ladder represents a dream about spiritual growth, because the ladder is the ultimate metaphor for spiritual growth, one rung at a time. And remember again, this ladder, Rosho Magia Hashamayma, ultimately at the top of the ladder reached all the way into the heavens, which means that the ladder of spiritual ascension is endless. Endless possibilities. So Yaakov Avinu dreams about a lot of spiritual growth. He dreams about Malachim, and he dreams about the Ribono Shel Olam. What a dream. What a dream. And this is the first dream that the Torah records to remind us that you could tell so much about a person about what they dream about, and that the obligation to maintain a sense of God awareness is even when we are dreaming as well. It's so beautiful. He goes on. Your dreams, right? Because I will say, by the way, it's actually very incredible because we're actually doing this sugi now in Amud Yomi. In Amud Yomi now we're in the 9th parak of Brachas, and we're actually doing the whole sugya of dreams. Is what we're learning about. And there's a fundamental machlokes about dreams. Are dreams totally meaningful? Are dreams totally meaningless? Or perhaps, again, there's a middle ground where every dream has something meaningful and also has something meaningless embedded in it. A little bit of both. I will say, but even if you hold that dreams are meaningless, and maybe all dreams are just a projection of your subconscious. There's a school of thought like that, right? Dreams, in other words, there's a school of thought that says dreams have some prophetic element. And then possible that dreams are just a projection of my subconscious. Even if dreams don't have a prophetic element, right? And even if dreams are simply a projection of the subconscious, it is fascinating to see what the projection of my subconscious looks like. So when I'm asleep at night and the intellect is not churning all around and putting up walls and putting up barriers, what comes out? What comes out? What do I dream about? So says Rav Tzadok, you could tell a lot about where a person is holding in life based on what they dream about. When my intellect is not working and I'm not doing anything, I'm just simply sleeping. And again, remember when you sleep, your imagination is able to run wild a little bit. Umachshavosav himrak kimo chalomo shel Yaakov Avinu shara v'hine Hashem nitzav alav shezeu hachalom harishon shekasa b'Torah v'hu ha'mechaza ayoser bahir u'tmidi minochas Hashem yisbarach. So again, what do I dream about? So therefore, again, the Torah supposed to say is incredible. This is why the Torah says b'shach b'cha. You have to maintain God awareness even when you go to sleep. The goal is that even when I sleep, I know I sleep before God. I will say, so remember, here's the interesting dynamic. How do you maintain God awareness when you sleep? How do you do that? So the answer is, if I cultivate a sense of God awareness when I'm awake, and I live my waking hours with Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, V'haya'im shamoah tishmu'u al mitzvosai. If I live my waking hours with an awareness that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is my God, accepting upon myself the responsibility of Torah mitzvos, then that becomes part of my consciousness. And therefore, even when I go to sleep, and the intellect is not working, and again, my dreams are a projection of my subconscious, that's okay. That's okay. Because I've embedded within myself a sense of God awareness during my waking hours, and that will project itself during my sleeping hours. Such an overwhelming and incredible idea. And he says, this is why. Again, the Torah's first example of a dream is the dream of Yaakov Avinu. Let's finish up. Yisparach nimtzu rak tzadikim page ches me'amim shenisparu b'Torah came. I will say, to reach this level of not just knowing before whom you stand, but also knowing before whom you sleep. Right? So this is a level, says Rav Tzadok, that's very hard to reach. Very hard to reach. Because you could have someone who is an incredible tzaddik during his waking hours, but lav dafka that translates into God awareness during one's sleeping hours. So to reach this level, essentially what Rav Tzadok calls of b'shach b'cha. B'shach b'cha really requires sustained, dynamic spiritual effort during the hours of bikumecha. Good. So we'll say, therefore he points out over here in Ma'ariv. If you notice in Ma'ariv, he says there's an extra bracha. What's the bracha we have? The paragraph that begins, Hashkivenu l'shalom. Now, Hashkivenu l'shalom literally means, let us go to sleep in peace. What does it mean to let me go to sleep in peace? What does that mean? So there's almost an anticipatory tefillah that Hakadosh Baruch Hu, pretty soon I'm going to go to sleep. And when I go to sleep, what I'm asking for is allow me to maintain my sense of God awareness. Allow me to maintain my sense of knowing before whom I sleep. Allow me to maintain Shema and V'haya'im Shamoah even when I go to sleep. So we'll say, we'll stop over here for today, finishing up Oz Gimel, Mazel Tov, finishing Gimel. And we'll say, but so beautifully in Arab, so they explain to us why. When we say Shema, the obligation of Shema is not by Yom u Balayla, but rather it is B'shach B'cha uVekumecha. When you go to sleep and when you wake up. Teaching us ultimately, again, when I wake up, the obligation of Dalif Ne'miyat Ha'omed, create a sense of God awareness at all times, before whom I go ahead and keep a presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, obligation of mitzvos, instill that in my consciousness to the point, b'shach b'cha, that even when I go to sleep, I know before whom I go to sleep. But the only way to keep God awareness when you're sleeping is to make sure that my waking hours are filled with God awareness. That becomes part of my subconscious, and then even when I dream, that subconscious is projected into my sleeping hours, thus maintaining a sense of God awareness, even b'shach b'cha. Right? To say shkoyach, absolutely incredible. Continue Meretz Hashem tomorrow with Oz Dalet. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.